Welcome to Kids Learning Lab, a learning podcast made just for kids. This episode will be about the history of the universe.
In the beginning, there was nothing, and then there was something. Chapter 1: The creation of the universe.
The universe began with an incredibly tiny, white-hot dot at the center of nothing. This dot was dense and packed with energy. This dot exploded in what we now call the Big Bang, marking the start of time, space, and all matter. In the early universe, tiny particles called quarks were scattered around, floating aimlessly in space. Space and time, as we know them, did not really exist yet. As the universe expanded and cooled, it grew bigger and emptier. The force of gravity caused matter to clump together, shaping the universe. In the beginning, the universe was incredibly hot. As the universe cooled a little, quarks began to group into sets of 3, forming things called protons and neutrons. Electrons, small particles, zipped around, eventually joining the protons and neutrons to form atoms. The universe was initially a giant cloud of gas, which was pulled together by gravity. Eventually, this gas became so dense and hot that it ignited and formed stars. Stars burned gas through nuclear fusion, converting simple atoms into more complex elements. When some stars ran out of fuel, they exploded in a supernova, scattering space dust across the universe. This space dust clumped together to form new stars and more dust. Some stars formed with ice and dust clouds around them, which eventually created planets. One of these planets was Earth, which started as a fiery ball of lava. Earth was hit by a massive ball of flaming rocks, creating a huge impact. This impact caused debris to fly into space, and one piece stayed in orbit around Earth. This piece became Earth's moon. Before we continue to Chapter 2, here's a riddle. I have no beginning, but I started everything. I make space, but I take up none. I stretch forever, but I was once tiny. What am I? Think for a while. The answer is the universe. Chapter 2: The Hadean and Archean Eons. Weather update: Earth was constantly bombarded by small flaming rocks, also known as meteors. These meteors contained water, which, upon impact, evaporated into steam, filling the atmosphere. Weather update: the ground, once molten lava, had cooled down and solidified into rock. Weather update: the entire surface of Earth was covered by oceans, stretching across the planet. Look, volcanoes began to rise from beneath the ocean, their peaks emerging through the water. But then, a new development occurred. Land emerged. The volcanoes had dried out, leaving behind solid ground. Look, there was something in the water, a tiny microscopic speck. This speck, a simple life form, fed on the soup-like substances ejected from the bottom of the ocean. Look, the microscopic speck reproduced, creating more of itself. Inside these specks were special instructions, encoded within their very structure, guiding them on how to function and survive. It was called DNA. Earth update: these microscopic specks, now evolved, discovered a new way to survive. They can now absorb sunlight, a process known as photosynthesis. For more details, see the plants episode. Buy the Sun Eater today. Taste the sun with a revolutionary process called photosynthesis that lets you taste the sun. Side effects may include the release of oxygen. Earth update: the microscopic specks began to release oxygen as a byproduct of photosynthesis. Oxygen started to accumulate in the atmosphere, spreading across the sky, transforming the Earth's environment. The answer is B, microscopic life. They changed the Earth's atmosphere by releasing oxygen into the air.
Chapter 3: The Proterozoic and Paleozoic eras.
Earth had become a snowball, covered in snow, ice, mountains, and other cold, rocky features. Then it went back to normal. But then, the planet was a snowball once again, still full of snow, ice, mountains, and more. Then it went back to normal again. Life update: life began to form at the bottom of the ocean. Among the early life forms, there were sponges, simple plants, and even worms. Other strange creatures, like water bugs, also started to appear in the water. Earth update: these water bugs couldn't leave the ocean yet because the sun's rays were too harsh for life on land. Earth update: however, Earth had changed now, and it was now possible for life to survive on land. A protective blanket had just formed in the atmosphere, known as the ozone layer, which shielded the surface from the sun's dangerous radiation. Look, the water bugs could go on land. But wait, there was no food and no legs to walk with, so life couldn't thrive on land just yet.
One eternity later.
Look, animals! There are plants on land. Could the animals learn to walk if they had food? Said some bugs and fish.
One eternity later.
Look, the large water bugs had evolved legs. Now they could finally leave the water and venture onto the land. Life update: animals began to leave the oceans and move onto land, marking the beginning of the migration from water to dry land. Time for Paleozoic survival tips. So, you've somehow been time warped into the Paleozoic era. What do you do? Tip 1 is to stay in the water. Land looks tempting, but trust me, it's a bad idea. There's barely any food and the sun's radiation is brutal. Stick to the water, where all the cool armored fish and weird worm creatures hang out. Tip number 2 is to avoid a giant bug. If you do make it to land, beware of giant insects. Dragonflies the size of seagulls and millipedes longer than a car are crawling around. You're not at the top of the food chain here. Tip 3 is to find a trilobite buddy. Trilobites, water insects, have been around for millions of years. They clearly know how to survive. If you find one, follow it. Maybe it'll lead you to safety, or at least some cool underwater caves.
One eternity later.
Chapter 4.
And
Chapter 5. The Mesozoic Era.
and
The Cenozoic Era.
everything was huge during these times, including some large reptiles that people called dinosaurs. Before this period, there was a single massive continent. Over time, the land began to break apart, creating different continents. A meteor struck Earth, and the dinosaurs vanished. It was now the age of mammals. Horses, tigers, and many other mammals roamed the Earth. Monkeys appeared. Then apes showed up. Finally, people emerged, the first humans. These people discovered how to bank rocks together to create fire. Over time, these people spread across all 5 main continents, except Antarctica, which was too cold, and the Americas, which they hadn't reached yet. The Ice Age came and went. People from the big continent began crossing over to the Americas, where there was a high one and a low one. Once the Ice Age ended, the people who had crossed over were now stuck in the Americas. Some of these people began doing things like farming, growing food instead of just hunting it, though they still hunted sometimes. They started building houses, but some people had bigger houses because they had more food. This marked the invention of farming, or as some people call it, agriculture. People practiced farming all over the world. Human update: rocks weren't enough anymore. Metal was discovered. It was harder and better than rocks, making it a valuable resource. Bonus part: Dino versus mammal. Who would win? T-Rex versus elephant. Dinosaurs ruled the Earth for millions of years, but after the asteroid wiped them out, mammals took over. So let's settle this. Who would win in a battle, a T-Rex or an elephant? Pros of the T-Rex: it has huge jaws with bone-crushing teeth. It has strong legs for running, but it's not super fast. And it has tiny arms, which are not that helpful. Elephant pros: thick skin like armor, a powerful trunk for grabbing and smashing, and a smarter brain. Final verdict: if they lived in the same time, the T-Rex might have the bite force, but elephants are smarter and stronger as a team. In the real world, mammals did take over, so mammals for the win. For more info about mammals, you can check out our bonus episode.
Chapter 6. The Ancient Era. 3000 BCE to 1 CE.
People began trading food. They traded food that they hunted for food they could control and grow. Coins, small circular stones, were introduced as a way to buy food. With more people, there was a need for houses, and for people to make houses, more people were needed. There was also a need for people to take care of others and to invent new things. One of those inventors was Aristotle. Now, society had developed money, writing, laws, government, borders, currency, and more. In Egypt, people built huge 3D triangles known as pyramids to hold the bodies of the dead. 2,500 miles away, people in Central Asia started riding horses, becoming horse riders. In China, India, and Mesopotamia, societies were emerging, which meant more people. This led to a continued need for more people to care for others, though people still died young due to limited knowledge of medicine. The Middle East began to divide into regions, while the horse riders were spreading across the world. The Greeks arrived in Greece, establishing their civilization. The Indus River Valley civilization in India had declined, but China remained. New arrivals came to India, possibly the horse riders, and developed the first major religion, Hinduism. Around this time, 12 groups arrived in Israel and began to form their own ways of life. On the other side of the world, the Olmec civilization began creating giant stone heads. The Greeks started establishing colonies to expand their empire and increase the number of happy Greeks. In the Middle East, several empires rose and fell, but one remained, the Persian Empire. In India, a man named the Buddha promoted meditation and relaxation, founding the religion of Buddhism. In China, the country broke into many smaller groups, but Confucius emerged, founding Confucianism, a religion based on good morals. The Greeks continued to invent ideas and tools to help their empire thrive and grow. Alexander the Great emerged with the idea of conquering the Persian Empire, and he succeeded. After his death, his empire was divided among his generals. In India, Chandragupta Maurya conquered most of the land, except for the Tamil region, and he began selling spices to the rest of the world. China began to heal after its internal conflicts. The horse riders returned, invading China once again. The Greeks eventually took control of the territories left after Alexander's empire split. Then, the Parthians took over the region once ruled by the Greeks. The Mediterranean region was now under the control of the Romans, which included modern-day France, Spain, Italy, Switzerland, Greece, Turkey, and parts of northern Africa. A man called Jesus appeared, claiming to be the Son of God, and from this Christianity was born. It's time for our bonus part. Let's look at some ancient technologies. Number 1. The wheel. First invented in Mesopotamia. The wheel is a groundbreaking technology that let people move heavy loads and build vehicles. Without it, we'd be stuck carrying everything by hand. P.S. The horse riders used this. Number 2. The pyramids in Egypt. Massive structures were built in Egypt to honor the dead, but also to showcase architectural genius. Number 3. Coins, introduced in China. For trade, you'd need a currency. Coins were the first step toward modern-day money. And the last one, writing, first invented by the Sumerians. Imagine trying to remember a book by memory. Writing made it possible to share stories and knowledge across time. If you had to invent something back then, what would it be to help your civilization survive? Share your idea by emailing it to hello@kidslearninglab.com. It might appear in a future episode.
Chapter 7. The Middle Ages, yeah.
Silk from China could now be bought through the Silk Road. India reached China by sea and spread Buddhism and Hinduism to Southeast Asia. China split again. China became whole again. China split once more. In Africa, people began crossing the Sahara with camels, which have 2 humps. The Persians returned to their empire. The Romans moved their capital to Constantinople, which is Istanbul in modern-day Turkey. India experienced its golden age. Chandragupta's empire ended, replaced by the Gupta Empire, though the second Gupta emperor's name was Chandra, which was a coincidence. The Romans fought barbarians, and then the Romans split in 2. The Eastern Roman Empire became the Byzantine Empire. The Mayans in South America figured out the stars and built large cities with central pyramids that we think were aligned with the stars. The Go-Turks, the horse riders, took control of almost all of Central Asia. India broke apart, and China reunited. Japan became its own kingdom. Islam, the religion, was born, founded by Muhammad. Many groups of people took over parts of Europe. The Swahili people on the Swahili coast began trading goods along the African coast. France became the largest group in Europe. The Norse, also known as the Vikings, ventured to Iceland, Greenland, and Newfoundland, which is in Canada. The Holy Roman Empire was established. The Seljuks conquered the Persian Empire and invaded the Byzantine Empire. The Mongols from Mongolia invaded most of Central Asia. The Black Death wiped out a large portion of Europe's population. Johannes Gutenberg invented the printing press. This allowed people to print books faster. Christopher Columbus sought to find India by sailing across the world. He asked the King of Spain for support, and the king agreed. Persia regained its original empire's land, and the Mughals invaded India. Several countries attempted to find India by sailing through North America, but failed. France and Britain fought in the 7 Years' War. Now it's time for another survival guide. So, you've somehow time traveled to medieval Europe. Great, except life here is rough. Diseases and nights can kill you easily. Here's how to stay alive. Step 1. Pick your role wisely. In medieval society, you don't get to do whatever you want. You're either a peasant, a knight, a monk, or a noble. A peasant is basically just a servant that does endless farm work. A knight, if he survives training, can get cool armor. A monk does lots of reading, but at least you're safe in a monastery. And a noble is a politician. Good luck, politics is dangerous. Step 2. Avoid the plague. In medieval Europe, the Black Death is lurking right now. Here's what you shouldn't do. Don't drink dirty water. You're gonna get sick. Don't stand close to coughing people. They probably have the plague. And last, don't rely on medieval doctors. They might put leeches on you. The best idea for you is to run to the countryside. Step 3 is to beware of castles. Storming a castle sounds fun, but it's a bad idea. Castles have archers that are ready to fire at intruders, and no, you can't shoot back at them because they shoot through super tiny windows that they shoot arrows through. Second, the castle has boiling oil that can be dumped on your head, and I don't think anyone wants boiling oil on their head. And last is locked gates. Of course, a castle doesn't want anyone coming in. That's the whole point of it. So of course the gates are going to be locked. Step 4, you're going to need to trade. There are no credit cards or cash here. If you need something, you're going to have to trade. Or bartering. Bartering is trading one item for another. Some good trade ideas include salt, which is really valuable at that time because you can preserve food with it and there were no refrigerators. Cloth, everyone needs clothes. And metal tools. Axes and knives are in high demand during this time. If you're good at trading, you might just become rich. Final tip. If you see a knight in shining armor, run. Knights are not here to chat. If they think you're a threat, you'll be in a duel before you know it. And unless you have a sword and know how to use it, it won't end well. So, would you survive? What's your strategy? Would you farm and stay safe, or go on epic quests?
Chapter 8. Modern Times, 1750 to the present.
Britain ruled over America, but the American leaders didn't want to be ruled by a distant monarch. They declared their independence and had to fight for it in a long, hard war, known as the Revolutionary War. The result was the birth of the United States. After losing America, Britain turns its attention to Australia, where it began colonizing and establishing settlements. Meanwhile, in France, a massive upheaval was underway. The French Revolution, one of the biggest revolutions in history, saw the French people rise up against their oppressive government, overthrowing the monarchy and changing the course of history. P.S. They also killed the king and queen. Over in Latin America, many countries fought and won their independence from Spain, gaining freedom from colonial rule. In Britain, a new era of industrialization began. They learned how to harness steam power, which they used to fuel the creation of factories. These factories produced machines that could make products much faster than ever before, kicking off the Industrial Revolution. However, during this period, Britain also invaded India, establishing control and exploiting its resources. The people of India suffered, becoming poorer as Britain controlled their economy. This was also a time of many new inventions. The telegraph allowed people to send messages across long distances, and trains made travel and trade faster. Innovations continued to change the world during this period. Meanwhile, in the United States, the country was torn apart by the Civil War, fought over issues like slavery and states' rights. The war ended with the Union's victory, and the country began to rebuild. Afterward, the U.S. fought in the Spanish-American War, gaining control of territories like Cuba and the Philippines, which later became independent. The U.S. also annexed Hawaii, not through war, but through its own efforts. The U.S. also completed the Panama Canal, a massive engineering project that linked the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans, making global trade more efficient. World War I erupted. For more details, see our episode. But this time the world saw new, advanced weapons in use. There were planes equipped with guns, machine guns, armored vehicles, and flamethrowers, which all made the war more deadly than ever before. After World War I, many people blamed Germany for starting the war, leading to harsh penalties that affected Germany's future. Meanwhile, in Russia, the people had grown unhappy with their monarchy, leading to the Russian Revolution. The government was overthrown, and a new communist regime, led by figures like Lenin, took charge. In the Middle East, the Saudi family rose to power, conquering Arabia and establishing Saudi Arabia as a unified state. World War II broke out, with Adolf Hitler and his Nazi regime discriminating against Jews and other groups. The Allies eventually won, and Germany was divided and reduced in size. In India, Mahatma Gandhi led the fight for independence from Britain, using non-violent resistance. This movement succeeded, and India gained its independence. The Korean War split Korea into two countries, North Korea, supported by communist forces, and South Korea, supported by the U.S. and its allies. On the other side of the world, the United States sent the first man, Neil Armstrong, to the moon, marking a monumental achievement in space exploration. Meanwhile, countries around the world began the process of decolonization. Former colonies were gaining independence and the ability to govern themselves without foreign control. The world was becoming more independent. The global population surged, reaching 7 billion people, as advances in medicine and agriculture allowed for longer life expectancy and greater population growth. Technology continued to boom, with innovations like the Apple II computer and the development of remote-controlled cars. The Soviet Union, which had been a global superpower for decades, finally collapsed. This marked the end of the Cold War. Europe also saw its countries come together, forming the European Union to foster economic growth and peace. On the other hand, terrorists carried out an attack on the American Twin Towers in 2001. This might be a sensitive topic, leading to significant changes in global security and the U.S. response. In more recent times, technology has continued to revolutionize daily life, with the rise of cell phones, personal computer, and the internet changing how people connect and interact. Commercial airplane travel reached its peak, making air travel more common and accessible than ever before. However, in the modern era, the world also faces pressing environmental challenges, with global warming, see our episode, becoming a major concern. Despite efforts, people have struggled to find effective solutions to this issue. Here's a sneak preview of a fake book. Revolutions for Dummies. Step 1. Choose your revolution. The people are angry and you have to decide where to make history. Pick one. The American Revolution. Fight for independence from Britain. The French Revolution. Overthrow the monarchy. The Haitian Revolution. Lead the first successful slave revolt in history. Or the Mexican Revolution. Rise against Spanish rule and fight for freedom. Step 2. Rally the people. A revolution needs followers. You have to convince people to join your cause. Give passionate speeches in the streets. Print pamphlets. And promise freedom and justice. People love that stuff. Step 3. The battle begins. War is coming. Time to strategize. What's your battle plan? Your first option is guerrilla warfare. Hide, strike fast, and disappear. Step 2 is to defend your cities. Fortify strongholds and hold your ground. Step 3 is naval attacks. Take the fight to the seas. Step 4. The aftermath. Congratulations, you won the revolution. But now you actually have to run a country. What will you do? Write a constitution and hope it lasts more than a few years. Avoid corruption and keep the people happy, or they might start another revolution. Final question. In this revolution, would you seem like the hero or the villain? History remembers revolutionaries in different ways. Some are heroes, some are villains. If you led a revolution, how would history remember you? Final chapter.
Chapter 9. The modern day, 2025, and beyond. Yeah. The world of today is more connected than ever. Advances in technology, from the internet to smartphones, have transformed how we communicate, learn, and interact. Social media allows us to stay connected across the globe, while digital platforms have revolutionized entertainment, education, and business. The world has become more globalized, with countries working together to tackle global issues like climate change, pandemics, and economic inequality. The rise of renewable energy sources such as solar and wind power aim to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels and slow down climate change. Space exploration has made incredible strides. We have landed on Mars, sent rovers to explore the surface, and are preparing for missions to the moon and beyond. Private companies like SpaceX are helping drive this new era of space exploration, while new technologies are making it possible for more people to become astronauts and experience space. Artificial intelligence, AI, has become a powerful force in various industries, from healthcare to entertainment, helping improve efficiency, solve complex problems, and even create art. But with AI's rapid growth comes the challenge of ensuring that it benefits society and doesn't pose ethical risks. In the field of medicine, breakthroughs in gene editing, personalized treatments, and the development of vaccines have opened new frontiers for healing and prevention, making it possible to cure previously untreatable diseases, like influenza. However, the world still faces many challenges. Poverty, inequality, and political conflicts continue to affect billions of people. And with the rise of new technologies, there are concerns about privacy, data security, and the impact of automation on jobs. As humanity looks to the future, we find ourselves in a time of rapid change and uncertainty, but also boundless opportunity. The next chapter of our journey is being written by the actions we take today, as we continue to explore, learn, and strive for a better tomorrow.
And that is the end of History of the Universe, Kids Learning Lab mega episode. To see the bloopers for this episode, sign up for the newsletter or subscription tier on Patreon. Hope you enjoyed it. This episode was written, edited, and published by Ishan Buddhisagar.
This episode had voicing from Vihan Mysore.
Our theme music was produced by Blue Dot Sessions. This episode had inspiration from History of the World, a YouTube video you can see at go.kidslearninglab.com/historyoftheworld. Thanks for listening!